You know, see?
What is up?
Yes.
What is up, my friend? Hey, Meadow. Good morning. Good morning.
Holding tight. Trying to get by. As always.
That is good.
Hey, Mr. V.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Ooh, change. Yeah. Wow, hey, Jay. Yeah, so
What's up, man?
so the thesis thing, I don't really know what we doing.
That's all right. We're gonna go over it again
Thanks,
today.
man. 'Cause, I think you told us to write a story, but I wasn't really paying
Now
attention.
you might be confused with using the story that we read, but we'll go over it again once
Gotcha.
we get a few more
Right about
people in
this.
here because that's what we are working on today.
I think I might be good, but in all classes except for Franny's, her
That's
lab
good.
thing, her lab thing is pissing me off, man. It's glitching and acting weird.
Like the site that she's using to do it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's like a
Mr. V,
science thing.
What's up, man?
you never email me what I owe.
You're right. I did not. Let me see. Let me check on that right now.
I don't think I owe a lot, but I think I do owe something.
Mm-mm-mm. I only have you for this class, right, Meta?
Huh?
I said I only have you for this class, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay.
For English too, right? I think. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That's what this is.
Now, seconds. See if this woman woke up.
All right. The building.
Mr. V, you rather go in the building or just keep teaching on a computer?
Right. Wait. Did you say would I rather be in the building, or are we going to be?
Said, would you rather be in a building?
I mean, I of course would rather be in the building to to see everybody, to see all of you guys, to see the other
Yeah.
teachers. Um, but I don't mind teaching on the computer because obviously, like, I can stay at home and stuff. But my biggest concern is always just that you guys don't fall behind and you get the credits
Yeah.
that you need and are able to still graduate on time. So if that means we have to keep teaching online for a little bit, but you guys can still graduate on time, then that's what we got to do, and that'll probably be the case until at least like the end of January, beginning of February. It looks like. So it is what it is. I'm gonna try to kind of add some things, for like when next term starts.
Yeah.
Um, to kind of make it um, a little bit more engaging. Do a little bit, couple different things. But no, I don't mind it. What are you? Do you like what we're doing now better, or do you like being in the building better?
I like what we're doing now.
Yeah,
Me too.
So we
you
don't have
too.
to
What
get
all you
up.
said?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to get up and go all the way to school.
Yep.
It's like we're doing the same thing in school. We just
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
each other.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I agree.
As long as we don't lose track, like of work, we Gucci. I'm good.
Yeah, I think that's the important part. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you are liking not having to get up and physically go to school.
I just hope I
All right.
graduate before we do have to go back.
You I don't know. You might. I assume we'll be back before. Are you supposed to graduate in the summer?
I'm not sure. I just asked Lisa,
Okay.
but I heard February.
Okay.
All right. All right. Yeah. I mean, regardless of whether we're back or not, when we do finally go back, I know we are planning to have like an in-person graduation ceremony where everybody
Oh
that has
hell
graduated since all this COVID stuff happened can still walk.
no.
And all
Nah.
that stuff. So
Yeah, I'm glad I'm done because
So we won't be walking down the aisle to get our diploma if we graduate.
that's what I mean. Like eventually, yes. If you graduate in February and we're still not back in the building, or maybe we're back in the building but we're not allowed to have a big graduation ceremony, then we'll probably like do something small. But then eventually, once this COVID stuff is behind us and we're allowed to have big gatherings again, then we'll probably have one big graduation ceremony to include not only those people that are graduating then, but also everybody who has graduated since,
Okay.
like last June that didn't get to walk in person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good morning, Keon. Welcome to you, my friend. Morning, good morning. Well, let's give it about maybe 2 more minutes. All right, while we are waiting.
Mr.
Everybody
Hay,
can go ahead
can you just tell
and
me what I owe so I can do it?
pull up some. Med. Once I get everybody started, I will look and I'll put it to you in the chat.
Okay.
But it's not. I don't think it's a lot because you just finished. Like you just sent me the checkpoint, which was good. So it's just 1 or 2 other things. But I will look. All right. Good morning again, my friends. Like I was saying, we'll give it a few more minutes here. While you're waiting, you can pull up Summit. All right, who else? Shirley is with us now. Good morning to you. Pull up Summit, find our class, which is English 2. All right. Let me send one last reminder out. All right, y'all. Once I get these reminders out, we will jump into it. I hope everybody is doing well today. I know we have a kind of muggy day outside, but I'm glad you guys are here nonetheless. All right, if you get an email or Hangouts message from me, you can disregard it since you are already here. All right, so let's jump in. Welcome again. Good to see everyone. Woodell, is your chat referring to Tehran? Is he still sick? Is he not feeling well? I'm going to assume that is what you mean. All right. Then let's jump in. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure where he is. I did have good morning, Nasir. I did have a couple missed Google Hangouts calls from him last night, but they were at 1 a.m, so I did not answer. All right, y'all. Welcome again. Good morning. We have an activity to finish today to set us up to be able to knock out the next checkpoint next week. Because remember, end of the term is approaching. Daquan and Malik are here now. Oh, yes, everybody is in. Love it. All right. So again, remember, end of the term, fast approaching. It is 2 weeks from this Friday, November 6th. So that means we're going to be kind of moving pretty quick now with the last of the checkpoints and final product and stuff like that. Now, my goal is to have that last full week just be dedicated to working on the final product and things of that nature. All right. So what we're going to do today is try and get our kind of thesis statement activity done so we can be set up to knock out the next few checkpoints next week. All right. So to do that, our kind of warm up thought for the day to get our brains back in gear is, what is a thesis statement? This is just kind of a little review from last class. What is I might have been typing too fast and had a typo there, but our one question for today: what is a thesis statement, and what is one thing that a good thesis statement should have or do? All right. Let's take a few minutes. All right. And I want you to put your thoughts to that question in the chat for me right now, please. What is a thesis statement, and what is one thing that a good one should have or should do? What do we think? Anything we can remember from last class about this? Opinion of things. It should definitely be your opinion. Should definitely be argumentative. Yes, Meadow. Thank you. Great job. Any other thoughts? So that's one thing that it should do or have. Do we know what it is? Do we have just a general definition? Malika, Waddell, Shirley, anybody who can help us out here? All right, the question is, what is a statement straight to the point? All right, I'm going to say kind of to that, Waddell. It does kind of get straight to the point, but I think we can be a little bit more specific of kind of what it does, what kind of statement it is. Think about where we would usually, think about where we would usually see a thesis statement. Where would we usually find a thesis statement? When would we use one of these? Let's see if we can get maybe two more answers in the chat. An attention grabber, definitely. I think it's like part attention grabber and then part kind of getting straight to the point, like what Dell said. All right. The last way to think about this is, when I am, writing an essay, what is the purpose of my thesis statement? They should be blunt sometimes. That's true. But think about, what is the purpose of my thesis statement when I write an essay? Is it just to get your attention, or should it do a couple other things as well? If I think about, I have this essay where I'm going to talk about this thing, and I have a bunch of different body paragraphs. And then in my intro paragraph, I have my thesis statement. What should that thesis statement do? Why do I put it there in my intro paragraph? Yes, Waddell, the main idea, that is what I was looking for. So your thesis statement is kind of your main idea, your main claim or reason in your essay. So in the case of like an argumentative or a persuasive essay, it would be like, this is the argument I'm trying to make. School should start later for teenagers, right? And if it's more of like an expository, like I'm just giving you the facts kind of essay, maybe you're just telling me the facts about this case. Brexit was caused by political frustration in England, whatever it is. And so you want to kind of get my attention. You want to tell me what your main point is. And you kind of want to summarize, like, here's the evidence I'm going to give you to tell you about these things. All right. Just as another kind of quick review, we have another short YouTube video to watch that kind of explains thesis statements. All right. And best practices for them. All right. This video is short, it's only about 5 minutes, but what I would like us to be able to do, all right, when this is done, is list, and I'm going to put this in the chat right now. All right, I want everybody to be able to, who has joined us? Oh, Mr. Coleman, welcome. So after the video, I want everybody to be able to respond to that question in the chat, right? I am going to share my screen right now with you real quick, and I will turn the captions on as well, so that in case you can't hear, we are able to read what she is saying. And so again, follow along with this and then be able to respond to that question in the chat that I've just put in there when we're done. All right. And again, this is all going to tie into the activity we are going to knock out on Summit after this for the rest of today.
Hello, my name is Ariel and welcome to How to Write an Essay. Today I'm talking all about thesis statements, and you might think that's impossible to make an entire video about thesis statements, but I have so much to say. This series is brought to you by Squarespace. So, a thesis statement. You could say it is the anchor of your entire paper. Let's start. What is a thesis statement? It's a short statement, usually one sentence, that summarizes the main point or claim of an essay and is developed, supported, and explained in the text by means of examples and evidence. Where should it be? Typically, your thesis statement is at the end of your introduction. This is not a steadfast rule. You don't always have to put it there. But honestly, 99% of the time, you want to have it at the end of your introduction. A really helpful way to think about your thesis statement is that it's a compass. Imagine that you've just been plopped in front of a forest, and someone gives you an introductory ramble about this forest. Your thesis statement is the compass. Right before you're going to go and journey into the forest for a hike, you need a compass. You need something that you're constantly checking back to lead you and direct you through the essay. And forest. A lot of my students felt that thesis statements were something they were simply doing for me because I wanted them, because I love thesis statements. And I do love thesis statements, but they're actually a tool for you, the writer of the essay, as well. It's a way for you to keep on track. Constantly throughout your essay, you should be referring back to your thesis statement, looking at that compass to remind yourself what it is you're arguing. A lot of the times research can get out of control. You find yourself on fun but random tangents, and it's important to constantly be linking back to your thesis statement. It's a tool for you also. So how do you make a thesis statement? It's really important to realize that a topic is not the same thing as a thesis statement.
So that's a super important point right there. So we can always have, our paper should be about a certain topic, but then we should have a thesis statement that explains what we're going to talk about as it relates to that topic. That's key.
Your topic could be dogs, but your thesis statement will be a specific and arguable point about dogs. You could, for example, make your thesis statement, small dogs make better companions than large dogs. There you have a specific statement. It's not a fact, it's an opinion, it's an argument that you are making and trying to defend. Remember that your thesis statement should be an argument, not a fact. I have marked a lot of essays where the thesis statement is simply a fact. Something like, windows are made of glass. That's not something that you can argue, that's just fact. You're just giving me a research paper. What we're going for is an argumentative statement, something unique to you, something that you are proving, something that you're making connections about that nobody else has. If you're struggling to write an argumentative thesis statement, I find it incredibly helpful to do this practice. Write down on your computer, go ahead and type, in this essay, I will be arguing that, and then fill in the blank. That literally forces you to create an argument. You can end up leaving that as your final thesis statement, especially in lower years of university. Just having a clear argument is what a marker is looking for. But you can then, once you have a solid thesis foundation, change that so that it isn't as obvious. Another thing to keep in mind is that a thesis statement is never fixed. You can always change it, and thesis statements often do change throughout the essay writing process. You may have a thesis statement, you write your first paragraph, and you're like, oh wow, I actually am arguing something else. Or like 7 paragraphs into the paper, you realize, wow, I'm not actually arguing what my thesis statement is. Go ahead and change it. Adjust course to whatever you're actually writing about. You might think that my passion for thesis statements is insane and out of control, but thesis statements can help to anchor your paper. It can help you to link back and constantly make sure that what you're arguing is related to what you said you'd be arguing.
So notice that's one thing she keeps repeating. She keeps using that phrase anchor. It's like your thesis statement is kind of the anchor of your paper because it's what's guiding you for the rest of your essay, because your thesis statement is telling the reader like, hey, this is what I'm arguing about, or this is what I'm trying to prove about this topic. And here's the things I'm going to tell you about to prove that. And so you can always kind of go back to that as like kind of the guide of like, am I following that, you know, in these body paragraphs that I'm writing. So if we're having to think about that question, we have to answer, you know, what's something a good thesis statement should do, maybe keep that in mind.
And it's helpful to the reader to make sure that they know what you're talking about and can follow your argument. I really hope that you have found this helpful. Make sure to check out my other episodes on how to write an essay. And thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I use Squarespace for all of my website building, and I genuinely find it an incredible tool. It's an all-in.
All right. So the rest of that is just a Squarespace ad. So let's take another 2 minutes maybe and see if we can come up with anything for that question I just put in the chat. All right. What is one thing you should do to have a good thesis statement? All right. Or I might actually revise that. Or what is one thing a good thesis statement should do for your essay? So are there any thoughts or answers to those questions based on that video that we just watched? What do you think? Tool to navigate, get you to your destination or ending. Yeah, definitely, Waddell. I like that. It should be kind of, again, that anchor, that thing that guides, the direction of your paper. So, okay, if this is my thesis statement, if this is what I'm trying to prove about this topic, then everything I write in the body of my essay has to be linked back to that. Right? I like that, Waddell. Good job. Any other thoughts, responses to this? What's one thing you should do to have a good thesis statement? Or what is one thing that a good thesis statement should do? It can always be changed. Definitely. It might seem strange. And a good bit of what she was talking about was dealing with more kind of like college level papers and thesis statements, but it doesn't not apply to kind of what we're doing. And it might seem strange, like, okay, I make my thesis statement, but then I go back and change it. But that might be because, as you're writing or as you continue to research, you realize, oh, actually, what I really want to talk about is this. And so I have to go back and change that. I've done that before, like especially in college. Like I've thought, all right, this is my thesis statement. This is what I want to talk about. And then I realized, like, oh, I'm actually talking about this. This is really actually where the research is taking me. So I have to go back and edit it. Or sometimes what I typically do when I write an essay, like when I would write essays in college, is I would actually like write my introduction and then I would just put thesis at the end of that introduction paragraph. And I would actually wait and go back and write my thesis after I did like the research and wrote my other paragraphs, because now I know, like, okay, this is what I'm really talking about. Now, how do I just take all of this and put it into a thesis statement, which is what we're going to practice today. So thank you, Waddell, for that excellent transition. Yeah, like adding new points, right? Or maybe you thought you wanted to make one point, but you actually are making another one. And so we kind of have to change that. All right. So that being said, let's do a quick refresh on the activity we are working on. So I'm going to share my screen again. All right. And everybody is with me so far. I'm going to stop for a few seconds. And if anybody is lost or has questions, now's the time to give me a shout and let me know, either in the chat or you can turn your mic on. All right, then let me share my screen. All right, so on Summit, if you don't have it pulled up already, go ahead and do that. You're finding our class on your year view over here. You want Yes Philly, or excuse me, English 2, Yes Philly. And then our project is In Search of Justice. And then we are looking at checkpoint 2 for this one, which is essay outline, should be assigned to all of you. over here. And then if we scroll down, we will see the first link says thesis check for understanding. And it looks like this when you pull it up. So take about a minute and give me a thumbs up in the chat, or let me know when you have this pulled up. So again, give me a thumbs up in the chat. Let me know when you have this pulled up. You are going to Summit, finding our class, English 2, clicking on Checkpoint 2 essay outline, and then you're going to scroll down like this, and then it should be the first one right there, thesis check for understanding. And then it should look like this. Let me know in the chat when you have this pulled up, please. Ooh, not that one. So I know everybody's on the same page. Shirley says yes. All right. Everybody else, please let me know. We got a lot of people in here today, so just want to make sure everybody is finding this. Malika, Daquan, Meadows, Sabrine, Waddell. Give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat when you have this pulled up. Let's take about another minute if we still don't have it. Daquan says yes. Malika says, I got it. Great, great. Thank you for responding. All right. Give it about 30 more seconds if anybody else still doesn't have it pulled up. All right, so what we are doing here, I'm going to pause my screen share for just 1 second. All right, so what we are doing here, ladies and gents, is we are practicing crafting our own thesis statement. We're going to do so for this prompt right here. So like she said in the video, you know, a topic and a thesis are two different things. Like your topic could be dogs, but your thesis statement could be about how certain dog breeds are more vicious than others. All right. So that is kind of the same case here. You know, like our topic is, you know, character traits, all right, and our character personality, but our thesis is going to be a little bit more specific. So what we're going to try to do is craft a thesis for this prompt. What we are using is the short story that we read, The Lottery, all right? And I am putting the link to it in the chat right now. So you can click that link to pull up the story to help you out. You can also find that link on Checkpoint 1 if you have that finished. But basically, our job here with this activity is to read this prompt and then see if we can craft our thesis statement. And you can see there's kind of these little check boxes here. So we can make sure our thesis statement has all of these elements in it. All right. Because remember, when we write a thesis statement, we want to do, you know, three things. We want to restate the main point or topic. Right. We want to give our opinion on that subject, and then we want to summarize the evidence we're going to use. Okay, so if we read this prompt, how does an author reveal a character's personality over time? Identify one character's fear, flaw, longing, attitude, value, or aspiration, and explain how this is introduced, explained, and developed over the course of a text. Now, if you remember, in checkpoint 1, we did this exact same thing. So there was 4 different boxes, and we looked at a couple different characters. We looked at Mrs. Hutchinson, Mr. Summers, Mr. Hutchinson, the village, the townsfolk, all right? And we identified like a character trait for each of them. So now all we're doing in this thesis statement is we're kind of putting it into essay form and explaining, like this is how, the author, develops this character's personality. So what I would do to start with this is maybe identify one character that I might want to use to write this thesis statement. For my example, I'm just going to use Mrs. Hutchinson. Okay. So now the next piece is identify one character's fear, flaw, longing, attitude, value, or aspiration. So one of those character traits. So somebody tell me in the chat or over your mic, what is one of these things we might be able to use for Mrs. Hutchinson? What might be the easiest thing to use? Does Mrs. Hutchinson from the lottery have a fear? Does she have a flaw? Does she have a longing that we could talk about in this thesis statement? What is a character trait of Mrs. Hutchinson's we might be able to use to craft this thesis statement here? Those of you who finished checkpoint 1, think about what you wrote in her box for her character trait. What is one thing we can use about Mrs. Hutchinson? Is she scared of anything? Does she have any flaws? Does she long for anything? What do we think? Is there anything Mrs. Hutchinson is afraid of in this story? Is there anything that she, any flaws she has? Can we think of one? What about towards the end of the story? What is she afraid of at the very end of the story? What does she maybe take for granted that at the end of the story comes back around and like, oh, now she's actually really scared of this? Can we refresh our brains, dig deep into our memory banks for this at all? Anybody who can help us out with this today? If we can't hear, I can put it in the chat as well. Right, I put it in the chat as well, but what is one character trait of Miss Hutchinson's from the lottery that we might be able to use to help craft our thesis statement?
anything she fears, anything she longs or wants for, any flaws that she has, anything that's wrong with her, might need improvement. Anything we can remember. Again, we just did this on checkpoint 1, so it should be kind of fresh in our brains. Thank you, Adele. Fear of death, definitely. So that's a good one to use just for an example today, right? So, okay, now we've identified our character. We've identified the trait we're going to use. So now we got to start to craft this thesis statement. And so I look up here, all right, these are the 3 things I need to have in a good thesis statement. So, I can start my thesis statement and say, the author of the lottery reveals a character's personality over time. So now I'm restating the main point or the topic, right, or the prompt, right? Reveals the main character's personality over time by showing that Mrs. Hutchinson has a fear of death. Okay, and we've given our opinion, because our opinion is that Mrs. Hutchinson has a fear of death. That's what we think her character trait is, right? And now I have to summarize the evidence that we're going to use, right? And then the last part of the prompt says explain how it is introduced, explained, and developed over the course of the text. All right. So if I'm crafting my thesis statement, I might say the author of the lottery reveals a character's personality over time by showing that Miss Hutchinson has a fear of death and introduces, explains, and develops this character trait over time through her. And now, what are the things that this is the last part of our thesis statement here, because we have to kind of summarize the evidence that we're going to use. And if you remember from checkpoint 1, when we looked at our quotes and then gave, okay, what type of evidence is this? All right. What kind of things do we look for to identify character traits? Right. What are some of those things? Can anybody remember and remind us in the chat? What are the things that we look for in a story? What are the types of evidence that we look for that reveal character traits? Yes, Waddell, impressions, looks, what else? Anybody else besides Waddell who can remember some of this? Thoughts, you got it. What else? There's about 2 more. Shirley, Meadow, Keon, anybody else who can remember what some of these are? Actions. Oh, look at Waddell's trying to knock it all out in once. What's the last one? Yes, you got it, brother. Good job. All right. So through her actions, speech. Now, what I would do here, so Waddell listed all of those, right? And again, we remember thesis statements can always change. So we would go back. But if I was writing this, if this is my example, I would think about, okay, if my essay has to be 5 paragraphs, I have my intro, I have my conclusion, and I have my 3 body paragraphs. So we have, 5 types of evidence to choose from that Waddell gave for us: actions, looks, impressions, speech, and thoughts, right? So now I might think about, okay, well, if I only need 3 body paragraphs, what are the 3 most important types of that evidence as it relates to Mrs. Hutchinson?
that I could use. So like, what are the 3 ones that I know she does the most of that I could write the most about, right? And so maybe that would be, for our example, through her actions, speech, and impressions. Okay, boom. And now I'm done. Now I've checked off all my boxes. All right. Does your claim identify specific character elements? Right. Definitely does, because we talk about what she fears. Right. Does your claim restate the language of the prompt? We definitely do that right here. Okay. Because we use that exact same language that the prompt does. Right. Reveal a character's personality over time. And then does your claim include specific subclaims to state how the character elements are developed? Well, we've done that right here, right? Through her actions, speech, and impressions. Okay. So this is kind of the basic way we would craft this thesis statement. Now, is there anything I could do in this thesis statement to be even more specific? Like if we look at this last checkbox here, right, and it's talking about, do we include any specific subclaims, right? State how the character elements are developed. Like, and I look at kind of the last part of my thesis statement. All right. Now, what I have right now works, but it's a little bit broad, through her action, speech, and impressions. So what could I do, to make this even, an even better thesis statement? What could I do to make it even more specific? Any thoughts on that? I'd like to hear from somebody besides Waddell on this one. So maybe Shirley Ann, Keon, Meadow, anybody else has any thoughts? Malika. What could I do here specifically at the end of this thesis statement to make it even better? Waddell has given me his answer privately, so I will hold off on sharing that until I see if we get thoughts from anybody else. But you are correct, Waddell. What could I do here at the end? I could just leave it as action, speech, impressions. That's true. But could I do something to make it a better thesis statement, to make it more of a thought out argument? No worries, Malika. I appreciate you letting me know. Do we think this is as specific as I can get here? By just saying action, speech, and impressions. Is that as specific as I can get, or can I get even more specific than that? What do we think? I could maybe add a quote. I would maybe want to hold off on the quotes until the body paragraphs, though. Because remember, our thesis statement should be like only 1 or 2 sentences. Anybody else who has a thought that I haven't heard from yet today? Shirley, Meadow, Daquan. What do we think? Could I get any more specific here at the end, maybe? Or is action, speech, impressions as specific as I can get? Meadow says, yes, I could get more specific. I think so too. How? What could I do to get more specific here? If action, speech, and impressions are the types of evidence we want to focus on to prove our point, how could I get more specific in my thesis statement than just saying her action, speech, and impressions? What could I do? And Waddell, maybe now would be a good time to share the answer you shared with me privately into the chat with everybody to help some of us out. So Meta says, yes, we can get more specific. How could we do that? Right. So we could talk about the specific, incidences with those evidence. So instead of just saying through her action, speech, and impressions, I could give a specific example for each one of those. So maybe the speech example is again through. So let's do this. So maybe I raise her, and now I give specific examples of these three things, right? So what's one action that she did that kind of shows she has a fear of death? All right, through maybe refusing to volunteer at first. And then maybe Waddell says denying or refusing to accept the outcome or her fate. And then maybe my last example could be, our impressions, and the impression of unfairness she left on the villagers, right? I spelled villagers wrong. Maybe instead, because these are kind of the same thing, maybe now I can go back, and instead of saying refusing to volunteer, I could say through joking around at the beginning of the lottery, right? All right, refusing to accept the outcome, like Waddell said, maybe the impressions of unfairness left on the villagers. So which one of these do we think is a better thesis statement? All right, actual facts from the story, right, Waddell? So which one of these do we think worked better? The first one where I just said her action, speech, and impressions, or the one I've changed it to now? Which one do we think would be a better thesis statement? Right. Which thesis statement do we think is better? This one that I just put up, or the first one that just said action, speech, and impressions? Which one seems like the more in-depth thesis statement? Waddell says mine, and I agree. I think, well, they were both mine, Waddell, but which one of mine? The one that I have up there right now, or the first one where I just said action, speech, and impressions at the end instead of listing these specific examples? Which one of those do you think works better? Second one is more explanatory, definitely. So that is the key here, ladies and gentlemen. That is kind of what I hope our takeaway is, all right? Is, the more specific we can get in our thesis statement, the better it will be. And we can see this is still, it's a long sentence, but it's still only one sentence. So if I slap this at the end of my introduction, boom, now my thesis statement is done, okay? So what your job is going to be, ladies and gents, in this activity that you will find on Summit is to come up with your own thesis statement. So think about a character that you can use, one of their character traits, and then craft a thesis statement just like I did for mine. All right. And if you are stumped, you can go back to checkpoint 1 right here. Okay. Your character profile, and look at what you put in these boxes and think, okay, yeah, I can use this one for Mr. Hutchinson. All right. This is the type of evidence I use, so I can kind of talk about the same sort of thing. All right. So I know we are just about out of time today. So I'd like you to try and work on this over the weekend, and let's come back on Monday and try and have it done by class on Monday. All right. So then we can jump right into the next checkpoint. Okay. So before we go, can you please give me a 1 to 5 in the chat? How much is this making sense to you? All this thesis statement stuff. 5 being like, I got it. I don't need any help. I'm good to go. 1 would be, I'm still pretty lost. I might need some more help. All right. Give me that 1 to 5 in the chat before you go, please. And once I see your number, you are good to jet for today. Have an excellent weekend. I have one for Shirley right here. Malika, that's fine. And I know you had a bunch of other stuff going on, Malika, so no worries. If you want to come to the afternoon lab today, I will be there, as can everybody else. If you're still a little stumped on this. All right. Yeah, so my apologies for that confusion with Dell. So no, not making up a story. Everything is going to be based on the story that we've read. We are making up our own thesis statement in response to that prompt about the story that we read. So my fault if that was confusing the last time we went over it. All right. So that afternoon lab is from 1 to 3 today and tomorrow. And today it doesn't work. All right. And yeah, Waddell, to answer your question, so you're finding one character and one character trait that can, that answers that prompt, and then, craft a thesis statement, just like I did, right? So just like how we worked it out and said, okay, this is what I need to do to have a good thesis statement, and then kind of put it together like that. Does that make sense? All right, Waddell gave me a 4. Good job. So if I have your 1 to 5 in the chat, you are good to go. If you give me a 1 or a 2, again, remember, I will be in the Summit Lab today if you want extra help, or you can always shoot me an email as well, okay? But I'm going to be in the chat for about another 2 minutes. If you have any questions, give me a shout. If not, we're good to go. Please have an excellent weekend, and I will see you all on Monday. All right, y'all, Keon and Sean, unless you guys have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the chat. All right. All right, you guys are good then. Have a great weekend. If you have questions, let me know. And I will see you on Monday.